The room was thick with silence, broken only by the faint, uneven rhythm of trembling hands struggling to tame a paintbrush. Dim light spilled from a single, flickering bulb overhead, casting long shadows across the cluttered studio. Dust motes floated lazily, settling on cracked tubes of paint, dried palettes, and empty canvases leaning against cracked walls. Alex sat hunched over a battered easel, his breath shallow, every muscle taut with concentration. His hands, shaking, unpredictable, hovered above a blank canvas, a battlefield waiting for the first strike. He gripped the worn wooden handle of the brush, fingers trembling like fragile leaves caught in a storm. Not again. Steady, steady. A jagged line tore across the white surface, the paint dripping unevenly. Alex flinched, biting his lip. The brush slipped. The line fractured into a jagged streak, like a crack in his own resolve. Outside, muffled laughter echoed through cracked windows. Voices, sharp, dismissive, carved through the night air. Look at him, shaking like a leaf. He'll never be an artist. Why even try? Words that pierced deeper than any blade. Alex's chest tightened. His throat constricted as a heavy wave of shame rolled over him. The weight of their scorn pressed down, making the air around him feel suffocating. They don't see me. They only see my hands. But inside, there's fire. A fire that won't be snuffed out. He glanced down at the trembling brush again, this time with something fiercer in his eyes, a quiet defiance. I will show them. His mind drifted to the memories that clawed at him like shadows. School corridors lined with sneers. The art teacher's cold gaze, lingering a moment too long on his shaking hands before dismissing his sketches as amateurish. The whispered mockery of neighbors who called his passion a waste of time. Yet beneath the doubt and the isolation, a stubborn ember glowed, a hunger for something more, something true. The brush hovered. A shaky circle took shape, uneven but alive. Layer after layer, colors blended and clashed under Alex's trembling hands, transforming chaos into something fragile and beautiful. He was painting not just a picture, but his soul, raw, unsteady, and fiercely alive. Minutes passed like hours. The flickering light above seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Sweat beaded on his brow, mixing with tears he refused to shed. I'm more than this tremor, more than their scorn. The image began to emerge, a swirling storm of colors, jagged and imperfect, yet mesmerizing. It was not the smooth masterpiece others expected. It was honest, vulnerable, true. Outside, the laughter faded, replaced by the distant hum of the city's night. Alex stepped back, eyes scanning the canvas, searching for flaws, for excuses to give up. But all he found was a reflection of himself, a young artist whose shaky hands could still create something no one else could see. He lowered the brush slowly, hands still trembling, but heart steady. One day they'll see. And in the quiet studio, under the dim, flickering light, a dream took its first breath. The heavy wooden door groaned as Alex pushed it open, stepping into the cold, sterile hall of the Art Academy. The air was thick with expectation, the kind that squeezed your lungs and made your hands tremble even more. His shaky fingers clenched the portfolio tight against his chest, the edges worn from countless nights cradling it like a lifeline. Inside the examination room, a long table stretched across, behind which sat a panel of stern-faced professors. Their eyes were sharp, cold, like knives assessing every inch of a vulnerable prey. Alex's heartbeat thundered in his ears. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he laid his portfolio down before them, the paper edges rattling slightly. One professor's eyes locked onto his hands. "Look at those," she whispered under her breath, loud enough for Alex to catch. How can he paint with such instability? Alex swallowed hard, wishing the floor would swallow him whole. The room felt darker somehow. The fluorescent lights buzzed, harsh and unforgiving. Shadows pooled in the corners, swallowing warmth and hope. "Begin," the lead examiner said, voice clipped. Alex lifted his trembling brush, feeling the weight of every gaze. He tried to steady himself, but the brush quivered, dragging uneven lines across the canvas. He painted the first stroke, ragged and raw. The others leaned forward, exchanging glances. One professor snorted, "A mess." Another added, voice dripping with contempt, "This will be a disgrace to the academy." Why waste time on someone with shaky hands? "Try something easier, boy," a third sneered. The words stung worse than the cold air. His chest tightened, tears burned behind his eyes. Alex's thoughts raced, a chaotic storm clashing with his fading resolve. Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe my shaky hands are a curse, not a gift. But a small voice inside him whispered back, fragile yet defiant, "No, I can't let their fear drown my fire." He gripped the brush tighter, though it only trembled harder. His vision blurred, the edges of the canvas wavering like a mirage. Suddenly, the panel called out, impatient, "Stop. Enough." The lead examiner rose, her gaze piercing like winter frost. "You lack control. Art demands precision, discipline. Not these pathetic excuses." Her voice echoed, cold and final. Alex's breath caught. His hands dropped to his sides, shaking uncontrollably. His portfolio lay open, pages of vibrant dreams and painstaking hours, ignored, dismissed. He felt a chasm open inside him, swallowing courage, leaving a hollow ache. For a moment, he closed his eyes, the voices fading into a deafening silence. Then, with slow resolve, he straightened his back and met their eyes. "I'm not perfect," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "But I see the world differently. I'm still learning, still fighting." The room was silent. The professors exchanged uneasy glances. Alex didn't wait for their verdict. He gathered his portfolio, trembling but unbroken, and walked out into the cold corridor. The echo of their words followed him. "You won't make it. A disgrace. Try something easier." But beneath the weight of doubt, a tiny ember glowed. This isn't the end. Outside, the night sky stretched wide and infinite. And for the first time in a long while, Alex dared to dream again. The small studio smelled of turpentine and old wood, a scent that wrapped around Alex like a familiar blanket, both comforting and foreign. Warm light spilled from a cracked window, dust dancing lazily in the golden beams. He hesitated at the doorway. Inside, a frail figure sat bent over a canvas, fingers stained with paint, moving slowly but with purpose. The man's hands trembled, just like his own. "Come in," the man said without turning, voice soft but steady. "You don't have to be afraid here." Alex stepped inside, heart pounding. His shaky hands clenched at his sides. The mentor finally looked up. His eyes, deep pools of kindness and pain, met Alex's. "I know those hands," he said gently. "They tremble with fear, but they can still create wonders." Alex's breath caught. "How do you do it? How do you keep going when your hands betray you?" The old man smiled faintly. "I was once like you. A lifetime ago, a stroke stole the steadiness from my right hand. Doctors said it was over, that my art was over." His voice grew firmer, memories flashing behind his eyes. "But I learned to paint with my left hand. to embrace the shakes, to turn what seemed like weakness into strength. He reached out, fingers trembling slightly as he passed a worn paintbrush to Alex. Close up on their hands, the mentor's steady despite the tremor, the young man's uncertain but reaching. "This brush," he said, "is not just wood and bristles. It's a bridge between fear and hope, between doubt and courage." Alex took it, fingers wrapping around the familiar shape. Warmth surged through him. For the first time, he felt a spark, fragile but real. The mentor's eyes softened. "Your hands tell a story. Don't let others write it for you." Alex nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. His trembling hands felt lighter now, as if passing through the mentor's courage. The room glowed with a new light, not from the window, but from within. "Show me what you see," the mentor said. Alex lifted the brush, this time with less fear. A shaky line, yes, but alive. A line of hope. And in that moment, amid the dust and the fading afternoon sun, the first glimmer of resolve flickered to life. "I will paint my story, my way." Alex sat alone in the dim light of his studio, the faint hum of the city outside barely reaching the silence that wrapped around him like a shroud. The canvas stood before him, empty, vast, a challenge as daunting as the first breath after a storm. His hands trembled as they hovered over the palette. Each color seemed to pulse with possibility and pain. He dipped the brush in muted blue, the bristles trembling under his uncertain grip. A slow-motion stroke traced the canvas, a wavering line, uneven yet alive. The paint bled into the weave of the fabric like a whispered confession. Sweat trickled down his temple. The ache in his forearm deepened, a dull throb beneath the surface of his skin. Why won't this stillness come? His mind screamed in silent frustration. Why do my hands betray me when I need them most? He gritted his teeth. The brush faltered, splattering unintended specks of paint. A sigh escaped him, bitter and raw. But he did not stop. Time blurred as the hours slipped by. The sun rose and fell beyond the cracked window. The canvas grew crowded with hesitant strokes, lines that danced, trembled, fractured. Alex leaned closer. His eyes, bloodshot and tired, searched the surface for meaning. Each brushstroke was a battle, a negotiation between his will and his body's rebellion. This is not weakness, he told himself. This is not defeat. His trembling hands became less an enemy and more an instrument. He began to see rhythm in the chaos, movement in the imperfection. The canvas transformed. The shaky lines wove together into texture, emotion, a signature all his own. "Your hands, they tell a story," he whispered to himself. "They paint pain, hope, fight." He dipped the brush again, this time with less hesitation, more acceptance. Sweat beaded on his brow, fingers cramped, yet the stubborn pulse of determination kept him anchored. What if I fail again? The thought haunted him like a shadow. But deeper still, another voice rose, a fragile flame against the darkness. What if this is the beginning? The studio air thickened with tension and resolve. Each stroke echoed years of silence, rejection, and unseen struggle. In the quiet, trembling brushwork spoke louder than words. It was raw. It was real. It was Alex. The night deepened. The city lights blinked far away. And inside that small room, a masterpiece began to whisper itself into being, one trembling stroke at a time. Alex stared at the blank canvas as night folded over the city, thick and silent like a velvet shroud. The studio, cramped and cluttered, vanished into shadows. Only the faint glow of a single lamp fought back the dark, casting long, trembling reflections over scattered brushes and cracked tubes of paint. His hands shook. They always did. But tonight, there was something different, something electric in the air that made the tremors feel like a pulse, not a flaw. He gripped the brush tighter. The wood was worn, familiar. A tool and a weapon all at once. This is it, he thought. This is my moment. The first stroke broke the silence. A wavering line, hesitant but alive. The bristles danced across the canvas, carrying years of pain, doubt, and silent dreams. The paint bled deep and raw, like a scar made visible. Breath hitched, heart hammered. The brush hovered, then pressed down again. Another line, then another. Each stroke screamed. Each line whispered secrets of shattered hopes, endless nights, and a fierce, unyielding will. The studio faded away. Time slipped through his fingers like spilled sand. Outside, the world slept, but inside, light bloomed. A time lapse danced through the night, colors swirling, shapes emerging. Dark hues of despair gave way to streaks of hope. Shadows bowed before the dawn. His hands, still trembling, moved with growing confidence, defying their own rebellion. This is not just paint, Alex thought, eyes glistening. This is my voice, my fight, my soul. The air grew thick with tension. The brush whispered secrets, tracing the jagged edges of his journey, a story no words could tell. Minutes became hours. The night deepened, but so did his resolve. A crack in the darkness, a line of light. Dawn spilled over the horizon, soft and golden. Alex stepped back, breath shallow. The canvas shimmered, raw and perfect, alive. A masterpiece born not of flawless hands, but of unbreakable spirit. His shaky hands trembled, but this time with triumph. The world outside waited. But here, in this fragile dawn, a new story began. The gallery buzzed with muted chatter, polished shoes clicking across gleaming floors. Crisp air held a faint scent of varnish and expectation. Alex stood in the corner, a ghost among the well-dressed crowd, his heart pounding beneath the fabric of his worn jacket. The painting stood proud on the center wall, massive, raw, unyielding. Shadows clung to its edges, as if reluctant to reveal all at once. The gallery lights flickered on one by one, bathing the canvas in a warm, golden glow. Whispers rose like a tide. Is this the work of the boy with the shaky hands? He's just a clumsy amateur, right? Alex's jaw tightened. The old voices crept back, mockery, doubt, the familiar sting of dismissal. But then a woman stepped forward. Her eyes locked on the canvas, wide and unblinking. The crowd hushed, leaning in. Her breath caught. Faces turned, following her gaze. The painting wasn't just colors and shapes. It was a story, a raw confession carved in brushstrokes. The jagged lines screamed struggle, the vibrant reds pulsed with passion, and the fragile blues held whispered hope. Alex's breath hitched as he watched their expressions transform. Skepticism melted into wonder. Doubt softened to awe. The room filled with murmurs of admiration. They captured the chaos inside, a man whispered. The pain and the beauty. The murmurs swelled until applause erupted. It crashed like thunder, shaking the very walls. Heads turned toward Alex, eyes wide with newfound respect. Those who once sneered, now silent, speechless under the weight of his truth. Alex felt the heat rise in his cheeks. Bitterness, that familiar armor, cracked. A quiet awe seeped in. Gratitude whispered in his veins. They see me now, not just the trembling hands, but the heart behind them. He stepped forward, shoulders squared, eyes gleaming. A spotlight bathed him in light. The shadows that clung to him all his life peeled away. The crowd's smiles blossomed, warm, sincere. This was his moment, not just to be seen, but to be heard, to be believed, to be more than the sum of their doubts. As applause echoed around him, Alex's shaky hands lifted slightly, steady, sure, alive. The masterpiece was not just on the wall. It was alive in him. The studio was alive. Sunlight spilled through tall windows, casting golden rectangles onto worn wooden floors. Brushes clattered softly. Laughter bubbled up from clustered students, faces alight with curiosity and hope. Alex moved among them, no longer the trembling shadow in the corner. His hands, once uncertain and shaky, now moved with purpose. Not perfect, but powerful, alive. "Try this," he said gently, handing a brush to a young woman whose fingers trembled like his once had. Her eyes met his, wide, hesitant. "It's okay," he whispered. "Let your hands tell your story." She dipped the brush and hesitated. The trembling didn't vanish, but it no longer held her captive. Color blossomed beneath her touch. Alex watched. A small smile tugged at his lips. "This is why I fought." Around him, others painted, some with steady hands, others with shaky ones, all filled with fierce determination. "Do you think I can ever be good?" a boy asked, voice tight with doubt. Alex knelt beside him. "I steady." "Good," he echoed softly. "You're already more than good. You're brave. You're creating. That's everything." The boy's breath hitched. For the first time, his hands didn't shrink back. The room hummed with change, quiet but unstoppable. Outside, whispers of doubt still lingered. But inside, something greater had taken root. A movement, a shift. Alex's story had become a beacon, not just for those who struggled with shaky hands or broken dreams, but for anyone told they were less. In that studio, every stroke was a defiance, every canvas a declaration. And as the light shifted through the day, Alex's trembling hands moved steadily, crafting a future where limits were redefined and strength was found in vulnerability.